All right. Thanks, Roberta. Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for being here. This is the Wednesday, November 19th, 2025 meeting of the City of Somerville Community Preservation Committee. My name is Ryan Kirchhoff. I'm the chair. Pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, this meeting of the Somerville Community Preservation Committee will be conducted via remote participation. We will have a video recording available upon request as soon as possible after the meeting. Roberta, could you please call the roll?
Sure. Ryan,
Present.
Eric,
I'm here.
Carlos is not here yet. Mary Jo,
Here.
John,
Here.
Joe is also not here yet. Heather,
Here.
Michael,
Here.
and David.
Here.
All right.
Excellent. Thank you very much. First item on the agenda is the partially delayed approval of minutes from the September 24th meeting, and then also our most recent iteration, the October 22nd. Are there any comments or questions regarding the minutes, the draft minutes that were posted by Roberta in the meeting packet? All right, hearing none, could I have a motion? Roberta, do we need to approve these one by one, or can we approve them together?
To be safe, let's approve them one by one.
All right, could I have a motion then to approve the September 24th minutes, please?
I'll make that motion.
Anyone second?
I'll second it.
Thank you very much. Roberta, please call the roll.
All right. Ryan,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Carlos, not here. Sorry. Mary Jo,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
and David.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And would anyone like to make a motion, please, for the approval of the minutes of October 22nd, 2025?
I can make that motion.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Roberta, please call the roll.
Ryan,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Carlos again. Mary Jo,
Abstain due to absence.
John,
Yes.
Joe, also not here. Heather,
Yes.
Michael,
Aye.
and David.
Yes.
Thank you very much, everybody. A nice job, Roberta, summarizing or capturing what was a very talkative last meeting with a lot of different speakers. All good there. Okay, let's move on to the update on the Kennedy Schoolyard application. Roberta, I don't know if you have any preamble on this or if we want to hand over to our friend John. Anything,
I'm
Roberta?
ready. Yeah, I would be happy to just hand this over to John, and happy to follow up with answers to any questions that John doesn't have.
Good. Thank you very much. Previously I came to the CPA requesting $1 million in the fiscal year 26 funding cycle through our formal application process. I also informed you that we would be interested in potentially coming to the CPA to request the bonding for the remaining $2 million that we need to construct this project. It's come that time where we would like to come to the CPA and make that formal request for $2 million on top of the $1 million request through our general funds. I can start to kind of go through a breakthrough of how this funding will kind of go over, if that makes the most sense for everyone. Obviously, you know the Kennedy School. I kind of made a presentation on that all before. I don't know if you want some more background about that, or if you want me to just kind of dive into the finance.
I think we're okay on the general background. Folks can refer to the minutes in the packet if they need to. So yeah, just on the bonds.
Okay, perfect. Roberta, it might be helpful if you could share one of the items that was included in the second application. It should be called Kennedy School Playground CPA contribution.
I am doing that. For some reason, I've been trying to figure out how to get a better view of the document on my screen. But
It is a little weirdly shaped.
yeah, no, for some reason Adobe is not behaving the same as it normally does. So it is what it is. I will show you what I've got.
If you would like, I could also just share my screen. if I have that capability.
Yeah, I'll share this screen. I think that will be
Okay.
I think it will be the easiest, but where's the share screen? Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay. I went
Perfect.
straight to this page. Is this the page you're looking for?
Yes, thank you very
Okay.
much. So working with our finance team, we got this report back through a formal calculation system that the finance department uses to figure out kind of how much interest we pay, how many years we're going to pay this loan over, and kind of what the ask is for. So our ask was for $2 million to complete that $3 million request. Um, uh, Through our AAA bond rating, we get a really good interest rate of 3.25%. And then our finance team determined that a 15-year loan repayment plan would be the best option for us. So that 3.25 over 15 years equates to about $170,577 per year in the repayment plan. The one caveat to that is that if we have years that we don't need to, that we don't have as many open space projects and we have funds that are going back into the pool, we can use those funds to pay this debt off or just pay for the construction of the project, kind of reducing the amount of interest that we pay. The interest that we'll pay over the course of those 15 years, if it is that full 15 years, is about $558,000. So at this point, I think I would accept any questions or any more information that you're kind of looking for me.
Thank you for the summary there, John. So just to restate what I think I heard, there's no prepayment penalty if we have funds available to pay down more of this balance than is projected here in any given year.
Yeah, so if let's say next year we had some money, like we had $500,000 of money that's kind of sitting in pot, we actually wouldn't even need to request we wouldn't actually have to take out the full loan for $2.2 million. We would only have to take it out for 1.5 million. If we have more funds, we can just pay the loan off sooner.
Okay, understood. And maybe one more from me before I open up to the floor. Roberta, just looking back at the history of the CPA here in Somerville, I know there have been years where our debt service on previous bond decisions show up in our budget as effectively portions of the CPA budget that are not available for us to make funding allocations with. I guess the question is, do we have any of those currently affecting our budget this fiscal year? If not, this would be a new kind of our only bonded commitment moving forward, which feels different if we do have a bunch of other money committed.
One moment. I'm going to stop the share for a moment and open another document that will answer the question.
Apologies,
And
some of
I'm
my
going to share.
colleagues on here probably know the answer to this question already, but
The other one
Yeah,
that comes
there's
to mind is the library in West Somerville Library. I think that was
an
bonded.
existing bond there, and then we bonded on the housing on was it Clarendon Hill?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh.
So I have on the screen, this is actually the document that's in your meeting
there it
packet,
is.
the
Yeah.
financial worksheet. And on the budget page, it shows what we are taking out for debt service. Right now, we have debt service on, as you mentioned, you guys have a great memory. The West Branch Library is the historic resources project, and the community housing is both Clarendon and the 100 Homes Initiative.
Got it.
So that's a combined $10 million, and the debt service for both of those together is $600,000 a year.
Okay, so we're paying $723,000 a year in debt service. If we were to accept this proposal, that number would become effectively $894,000 a year committed from the start of each one of our budgets for the next probably not all the way to 15 years. I don't know what the terms are on these other debt service instruments that we're paying, but in any case, next year I would assume it would be $893,000 committed. So just wanted to note that. Okay, questions or comments from my peers on the committee?
I have a curiosity question. Do we tend to not have more than one debt service type project going at the same time? So in other words, we have the housing category, the historic, and then this would be the open space. So it's almost like the three categories each have something that would be a recurring debt service. Does that mean we sort of time out on that for a while, or can we revisit it if an important project comes up?
You would be able to revisit it if an important project comes up. For example, the housing, there's actually two projects that combine to make that debt service cost each
Okay.
year.
David?
Yes. Do you know when the debt service on those other bonding agreements are up? And I know, and so it sounds like is there three of them? You know, two for, did you say housing and one for the library and one for the museum?
Yes, and I don't
For the
happen to know offhand. Alan, I can see, has joined us. Maybe Alan remembers how long the debt service schedules are for those projects.
Hi, good evening. Different projects may have different amortization schedules depending on the depreciation value of the asset and how it's categorized accounting wise. Typically, they're between 15 and 20-year projects. And I believe on all three of these, at most we're like the original one was the 100 homes, and at most we're like 5 or 6 years into the debt service on that one. So, you know, for the majority of these, we're probably still in the territory where we have 10 years plus of debt service. You know, unless of course we were to make a decision at some point to pay one of these down early.
I'm wondering, as a quick follow-up, I'm wondering if it might be good for us to try and capture that information and have it on this spreadsheet.
Absolutely.
So
We can,
also future committees could see, you know, how long these payments are going to last.
every new fiscal year, we get an updated amortization schedule, so we can certainly get the most current amortization schedule for all the projects and share that, no problem.
Yeah, and just anecdotally, I think 100 homes might be older than that because I've been on this committee 5.5 years or something like that, and it predates me.
Yeah.
It also typically takes sometimes like a year between when you actually expend the funds and start the debt service payment too. But yeah, totally.
That's fair enough.
Okay. Cool. Thanks, Alan. Appreciate that.
So it sounds like we're committing the CPC perpetually to help service that, which means there needs to be a minimum amount of revenue that the CPC is expecting to get every year for the next 15 to 20 years, right? Is there a legal limit to how much debt service that we can kind of aggregate over the years? Because I assume the legislator doesn't want us to take on, you know, a certain amount of debt and then have our CPA revenue decreased for some reason and have a mismatch there, right?
Yeah. I wonder why there's an echo. I wonder if everyone who's not speaking can mute, and maybe that will
I think we're good now.
clear that. Okay. So the legislation requires that if for any reason our revenue stream was, you know, if Somerville voted to repeal CPA, if the revenue stream was cut off, we would have to continue collecting enough money to cover the debt service until the debt service expires. So if they repealed it tomorrow, we would still have to collect that 690,000 or however that much that was in property tax surcharge each year until it goes away.
Got it. Good
But
question.
there is, you know, we do have to be careful to stay within the limit of how much we can borrow. So that's something that needs to be analyzed every time we consider a bond.
David?
Yeah, I have a follow-up if you will permit me. What is the difference between us bonding this project and the city bonding it directly? Like why add it to our, why add it to us and let it instead of us and letting the city?
Is it
Just
because
bond
it's
it
not
itself?
coming from the general fund? Is that it?
I see Alan nodding yes.
Can you explain that to non-fiscal type people?
Yes, long story short, it doesn't impact the rest of our borrowing capacity because the borrowing is analyzed strictly on the borrowing ability of the CPA revenue stream. So it gives us some additional flexibility in the city borrowing.
Thanks, Alan. Okay. Any other comments, questions as people kind of wrap their minds around this request? No, I'm still learning and processing here as well.
I should acknowledge that I put the amended Kennedy School application in your meeting packets this morning. So you haven't all had the opportunity to digest this in advance. But you can, I think we're not voting on it tonight anyway. So you can go home and digest it, and I will bring more information about the amortization schedules for the other projects that we've already bonded to the next meeting.
What changed, Roberta or John? Was it just the addition of the language about the bond? Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we went back and forth to evaluate how to handle this request and decided that since the previous application, the scope and budget were still the same, the only difference between the original application and this amendment is that we're now including the bond request in the application together with the current year's revenue.
Understood. Okay, very
Going,
good. Okay,
can
go
I
ahead,
ask
David.
one more question?
Yeah, go on.
So just to be clear, our debt service comes right off the top of what we can award each year? Is that correct?
Yes.
So instead of us having $7 million a year, a year, we'll have $6 million a year to service all these debts?
Yes, I'll share the
And I know,
budget again.
I'm doing rounding the numbers. I know I rounded
Yeah.
up.
Yeah.
but,
Sharing the budget again, the way that it works is that when you vote on, so you have the full budget, which is, I'm going to use the real full budget, $7 million, and you decide how to distribute it between the program areas. So this column is the numbers that we get when we apply your distribution. Then we subtract the debt service for each category. So and then we get the amount that we actually put into the reserve, what's available from the program year.
So each
So
category still it gets reduced by debt service annually. Okay.
yeah. So
Okay.
we do the distribution calculation first, then we subtract the debt service, then this is the remaining is what's in the reserve for you to spend on projects.
Got it. And just processing there, the vast majority of the debt service that has hit CPC in recent years is hitting against the housing allocation, which means it hasn't been as big a factor for our group specifically as we evaluate projects and spend our dollars because we've already handed over the jurisdiction of that money to the housing trust. So this will be a bit of a step change from that, as this would be our largest line item affecting the budget that we exclusively control.
Yes, and not by a significant amount. I'm looking at the numbers again, 170,577 annually, compared with West Branch Library, which is 128,000 annually.
Right, but more than doubling, I guess.
Yeah.
I have one more question just to better understand. Since we've had CPA for a decade, but it's only now that we've had a open space parks type project need to use this approach with the bonding. Was there anything unique about the Kennedy School project? Or in other words, conceivably, there could be other open space parks projects of a similar price tag, but this is the first one we've ever considered bonding. Is it because of this, just the sheer scale of it or the price? I'm not questioning it. I just want to better understand, why did it take us 10 years to get to our first open space project?
There are two reasons for that. Number one, ARPA was able to pay for a lot of things that we probably would have had to bond if we were going to move them forward in that time frame. Number two, we actually did agree in principle to bond a project previously for open space, which was Art Farm. But Art Farm was put on pause back then. That was in about 2019 or so. And now it's actually ready to move forward. And so in the interest of full disclosure, they are working on potentially a proposal for bonding Art Farm in the near future. So this may not be the only open space bonding request this year.
Do you have numbers on that or any estimate on what that will add to our debt service?
I do not yet.
Because I think that's an important component of this discussion. If if after however many years that's been sitting and now it's going to become a bond that we also will have to serve.
I can speak a little bit more to this. So we have some grants for Art Farm that kind of require us to move in a faster timeline than our normal application cycle. So they know that they'll need to apply before next September's application cycle. But at this time, they're not really sure about what they're going to need to ask for on this project.
Do you have I mean, is it $1 million? Is it $5 million? I mean, do you have any ballpark?
I don't really. I'm not kind of working on this project. It's in conjunction with infrastructure and asset management. So we're trying to scour through all of our different grant opportunities, like land, water conservation funds.
Is Art Farm also wholly municipal, or is that a kind of a private venture or a
No,
joint?
it's all municipal. There's obviously some developer generated funds through different fees through permit applications and whatnot that paid for the tank underneath the farm and the project. But it is like a municipal run project and it will be a municipal park.
So with Art Farm, we had at one point tried to clear our books of old lingering grants that were kind of um, laying fallow or in a no man's land for a period of time. And I'm trying to remember what exactly we decided to do with Art Farm during that process. I know that it got shifted because the underground tanks, that project became a big project and that sort of had to happen first. But I think we did cancel the original grant, right? Like they have to reapply.
Don't
No,
think.
actually, so going way back in history, the Art Farm originally came to the CPC as a $1 million ask, and the CPC didn't have $1 million that year, so they offered to put up $500,000, basically a little bit more than half, maybe 60%. They put up using the current year's revenue,
Thank you.
and I'm sorry. And 40% they said they would bond. So the CPC in principle made a commitment to bond for Art Farm, but they weren't ready to go forward with that project yet. And then we held on to the 500 and some $1,000 promise, a recommendation, as you recall. And then last year, that was finally moved forward to city council and it was approved. So that's now on the books as a funded project.
And in terms of the budget, it's already, it's been out of our line items and reserves ever since it was committed.
Yeah.
Right. So like, because the thing that strikes me in just sort of increasing the debt service is what does that do in terms of our strategy or approach to our undesignated reserve, and what minimums do we want to revisit the minimums that we want to keep there? Or are we kind of going to continue with it as it is? And I also just want to remind everyone that we only make recommendations and then it goes to city council, and city council again debates it and moves to make the final approval. So we're a recommending body, just to lighten your conscience about adding more debt service to the budget. But I do think that the flip side is this undesignated fund, and we've been dipping into that pretty aggressively each year. And so just want to bring that up as a counterpoint to the
Yeah.
debt service.
That's a good note.
I kind of have perhaps an opposite concern. I'm happy to be told shouldn't be a concern, which is it seems that us taking on the additional debt service reduces our ability to support projects by a much greater percentage than the city taking on this additional debt service, and the impact, to its borrowing ability, their budget being so much bigger than ours. Especially with Art Farm on the horizon.
I would like to hear a little bit more about why it's better for it to come as a CPC debt service versus the city debt service. If is Alan's still here?
Yes, thank you. Speaking a bit freely, and John can maybe jump in and help me with PSUF's prioritization rationale. But in addition to it's just, borrowing it through CPC gives us greater overall borrowing capacity for the city, because this is only evaluated solely on the CPA revenue stream as collateral. But in addition, if this particular project, in light of all of the other citywide capital projects, think schools, think roads, infrastructure, water, sewer, at this time, the project may need to be delayed. If we were to wait strictly for general fund capacity to fund this. And I believe John can maybe help me out with this, but in the PSUF prioritization of parks projects, I believe this rose to the top, which in the decision-making process, it's either, delay moving forward with this on the general fund or seek CPA borrowing.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, Alan, but isn't there an opportunity for the city also to bond it? Like, it doesn't seem to me it's city, coming out of just city general funds or us bonding it. I mean, isn't the city bonding it another alternative, another option?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, but that's weighed against every other capital project that the city is faced with funding.
Yeah, so the CPC just allows us to move more quickly on these types of projects. And that's kind of our main goal with it, because it is our top priority project right now. We are also dealing with a lot of renovation projects. You funded Quincy, Nunziato. We're taking these like secondary projects that we know are our priority also to complete, but the Kennedy rose as one of our top priority parks projects in the city. It's also been a part of our school renovation master plan for a long time, and it is the final piece in that. You helped support the Dilboy Auxiliary Fields, and now we've completed, well, once that park opens, we've completed our fields master plan. once we complete the Kennedy School, we will complete our school's master plan, and we can kind of focus on the renovations of our other projects. The next tier of projects is kind of a lot farther down than the Kennedy School. So we would kind of have to focus on like lesser projects. I don't want to use the word lesser. All of our parks are very important, but we won't be focusing on the park that we know is a top priority for the community, especially being the project manager for the design of this. The amount of communications, the amount of people on my like newsletters, the amount of support for this project is really tremendous, and we really haven't seen this amount of support on kind of our other projects.
Just from a quick process question, is there going to be another space in this cycle where we're kind of deliberating these a bit further? Because I want to continue that dialogue that John's having right now, but I don't
Yes.
want to. Okay, great.
Yeah, I will probably start that in a few minutes, and we can definitely come back to this one. But I guess anything else related specifically to the structure of the bonds, we can talk more about the project itself, I guess, in a little bit. Okay. Maybe we put a pin in that one then.
Sorry, I do
Let's
have
go.
one
Yeah.
more
Mhm.
question on it.
Mhm.
So in terms of sort of PSEF's kind of like 5-year plan of projects that you want to fund and pursue the next kind of 5 years, um, are there more sort of big projects like this, or like looking
Yes.
at the pipeline and stuff, how does that work out?
Yeah, I will point to our open space and recreation plan. It's really our guide to the next parks. It's kind of listed out there. You can see what our next parks are. There's some like Trum Field that are in need of repairs, and we know that there's also conversations with the school's master plan. So it kind of binds us in moving forward on some of these projects that we would really like to move forward on, but uh, we need to collectively discuss what this asset will be before investing a lot of CPA and other funds into the projects. So yeah, our big ones are kind of this project, Art Farm, Blessing of the Bay. And then there's just a lot of parks that need repairs. Obviously, CPA can't fund this, but like Port in Place, at a lot of our schoolyards, there's a lot of seal coat graphics that are different schoolyards and different parks that can be renovated. There's a lot of accessibility needs that we need to make in our parks. So kind of focusing on those things. The park, we look at the wheel isn't broken, it just needs a little bit of repair. It's working to a large extent. So we don't need to rethink what the park is. We just need to give it some love and a little facelift.
I guess one of the reality with the open space portion of our budget is you, John, are pretty much driving everything that it's asked of us, because it's not like we have private parties out there asking for open space money. So in a sense, you're sort of like, you have your finger on the pulse of what's coming our way, as opposed to historic stuff where it could be wildly different from year to year.
Right. And I can extract some excerpts from our open space and recreation plan to kind of send to the CPC, so you guys can kind of see our plan and also see the logic of how we reviewed our different parks, and kind of how we graded them and how we got to our ranking that we did. But that is kind of our main example of how we determine which parks are next. And I really like it as an employee of the city, because I can clearly look at a document and say, I know what my next few projects are going to be.
Yeah.
Thanks. And I have an odd shell game kind of question. It's possible in the past for the city to fund us directly, right? They haven't done that in excess of what we collect from taxes.
It's no longer possible. The like really getting into the minutia of the rules, the maximum that the city can put into the CPC is 3%, equivalent to the 3% surcharge. So in the past, when we only had 1.5%, the city could add from the general fund up to match what would be a 3% surcharge. Now that we're at the 3% level, we're at the maximum.
Okay, so that takes that idea off the table. Of hypothetically, if we have a separate bonding capacity of us borrowing more and having the city pay the payments that we're taking on, it's
Yeah.
a shell game. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, good. Well, thanks for the questions, comments. We can dig more into this later in this meeting or even in the next one as we continue deliberations. Thanks, John and Alan and Roberta, for fielding our questions there. So just to kind of set the table here for the remaining time that we have up until 8 tonight. So the next item on our list is to review the standard grant conditions, and then the idea is to delve into the applications themselves and start discussions. We do not need to vote on anything tonight. It's not typical that we would vote for anything in November. We typically do vote on most projects in December, but obviously we can continue dialogue for projects that we want to keep talking about from this one to the next, or if we don't make it to projects tonight, we can punt and take them up in December and vote or not vote on them at that time. So I will stop us a couple minutes before 8 so that we can do some administrative updates, which are on the agenda there. But otherwise, I think we can dive in. Roberta, do you want to start talking through
Sure.
the standard grant conditions?
Sure. Thank you for laying that out. So we're in a little bit of an unusual position this year in that usually I begin the November discussion with presenting to you what the numbers look like, how much money we have available to spend this funding round. I don't have those numbers really securely nailed down right now. I will by December, we'll know exactly. So we're going to reverse the order of starting this conversation a little bit from how we've done it the last few years. So I put on the agenda to take a fresh look at the conditions that we have the standard conditions for both the grant agreements and the memoranda of agreement. We've talked about these in the past, looked at them in the past, but just what we might do this evening is to look through the projects and answer two questions. How strongly do we prioritize each project, and do we know offhand if there are any particular conditions that we would want to place on the project if you were to fund it? And then next month, we can use that prioritization to decide how much you can actually fund of the projects that we've looked at. So I'm going to open and share the grant agreement general conditions and just look at it with you very quickly to refresh your memory. And I'm lost on my screen. All right. So this is these are the general agreements that are attached to every grant agreement that our grantees sign with us who are outside of the city. So we don't need to duplicate anything that's already in the general conditions. So the first condition is that they have to comply with all of the CPA requirements before we can give any funds. We identify who is involved with the project on both sides. Some things under deed restrictions, this is what we're working with the consultant with right now, and we may want to make changes to the deed restriction statement in the general conditions after we have results from the consultant. We have space for project-specific conditions, which we can still apply as we need to. And the requirement for signage and for informing people about CPA being a funder of a project in any kind of marketing or information that they put out. And requirement for return of funds if the project is unsuccessful. This does not actually have like a requirement for return of funds if they change their minds down the road and undo the work that we've paid for, which is something that we might consider. But that's also something that we could work with the consultant to update this section of our standard agreement. And I'm not going to pull up the memorandum of agreement that we have with the city for city projects. It looks very similar to that, but one thing that all grant agreements with outside entities last for a maximum of 3 years, and then they have to come back to us and justify if they need a continuation of their grant agreement. The city does not have that. So where we saw some projects linger in the past and not actually be initiated, we've added a requirement on the city MOAs that projects have to be initiated within a certain period of time or come back and justify to us to ask for an extension. So any questions about our conditions?
Yeah, just real quick, with regard to that last stipulation in the city memorandum of agreement, is that certain length of time, the same 3 years that we, or is it different, or are we doing different periods for different grants?
I'm looking at it right now. If 3 years, it's
Okay.
3 years, yeah.
Thank you.
And I'm going to open, I thought I had it open, but I don't anymore, the financial workbook that gives us all of like the overview of all of the projects, and I'm going to share that. And then I have also included in the meeting packet recommendation letters, draft recommendation letters for each of the projects. So I would invite you, perhaps Ryan, to take over the conversation, jump around as you would like to talk about priority and potentially conditions for projects as you will. I'll let you take over how you'd like to proceed with that discussion.
Yeah, we can do that. The one thing I would ask maybe off the top, just thinking about budget and understanding that the budget is fluid, we don't have all the information yet, but that I think, Roberta, what's captured here, which is effectively showing us ignoring housing, $3,129,000 in requests for our consideration, right? I see your number there in H23. And the total budget that we have, again, excluding housing, excluding the debt service commitments, etc., is 3.894 million today.
Yeah.
So understanding that we typically try historically to keep some dry powder. In the past, we've talked about a number of $750,000 or something like that for requests to come in throughout the course of the year. That would mean that basically right now we have effectively the funds necessary to fund all of the deals in front of us and keep $750,000 of dry powder for the rest of the year. Now, understanding that the budget may move, is it fair to say, Roberta, that we expect it would only go up from what we have here?
Yes.
Okay. So I just wanted to get that out there to have everybody's mindset as we talk through priorities. I think understanding the overall budget situation is important as we talk through priorities. So it's really a question of, whether people have questions or issues with the eligibility or the merits of a certain application, but also how much we want to keep for the rest of the year for off-cycle applications, which do come in. And then also bearing in mind that if we do go this bonding route on the PSUF request, the potential to use additional funds that we have here to reduce the amount that is bonded and therefore reduce the debt service payments over the next 15 years by committing more money now, if we, again, were to choose to approve it. So just laying that foundation. Thanks, Roberta, for humoring me with those. Let's go then into the projects, if that's all right. And hopefully folks have their notes from last meeting or other materials to refer to. Let's start with, I'm just going to go in the order of how these were presented to us. The Elizabeth Peabody House was the first one to present. The request for $420,566, primarily focused, correct me if I'm wrong, folks heard otherwise, but primarily focused on bringing the second floor of that building into working order and making it usable. Work related to the roof trusses, reinforcing floor beams and joists, and ensuring that the roof is safe. And the request is based upon an estimate from their architect and structural engineer. They obviously are frequent flyers with us, so they're a pretty known entity. So I'll pause there. Anybody with reactions, questions, feelings coming out of their presentation? This is our second biggest request among the historic preservation items. But I don't think, if memory serves, super out of step with previous requests from the Elizabeth Peabody House that we've heard before here.
Ryan, would you entertain a very minor monologue?
Oh, I'll entertain it. Thank you
Love
for
it.
asking.
Love it. All right. So, as everyone's aware, I'm appointed here from the planning board. And something that we frequently remind everyone during our planning board meetings is that basically everything we think about with applications that come to the planning board is meant to implement Summer Vision 2040. So if you guys haven't seen that document, it's a great read. Definitely encourage everyone to dig in. But as I was thinking at a high level about how to approach these applications in front of us, that was the first thing I went to. Is I went and looked at Summer Vision 2040. I looked at all of our goals as a city and a lot of the institutions that are addressing many of the items on our goals. And the two areas that I felt we had a decent gap on as a community were basically addressing mitigating family migration and displacement, and also trying to beef up our community engagement. And one of the key highlights, again, if you guys will entertain it for a second, that came in the document were that they wanted to, quote, ensure all SPS schools are true community schools, and that they wanted to support families and promote their longevity in Somerville. And this is a priority that came up over and over in the document, especially in the community engagement section, and that they also wanted to say that another strength in the Somerville Parks and Recs Department, which operates year-round programs throughout the city's public facilities, playgrounds, schoolyards, and other locations to promote positive and healthy activities for all members of the Somerville community, I think rings true not just in the open space projects that are in front of us, but other projects like the EPH, right? So just for what it's worth, I think this group has a pretty big opportunity to impact Somerville's goals on community engagement and preventing family migration displacement. And in particular, the Elizabeth Peabody House and the Kennedy School, I thought were two projects that, did an awful lot to help with these goals. So I just wanted to throw that idea out there as we're starting to venture into these deliberations.
Those are great notes. Thanks, Michael.
I had a very quick question. Since they are what you'd call frequent flyers, you're familiar with them using CPC or CPA funds a lot. Would you say, generally speaking, they're timely performers in those prior examples? In other words, with each use of CPA funding, do they become better and better at all of the requirements and that sort of thing?
Roberta, did you care to comment on that?
Yeah, they've been pretty efficient with using their funds. They did have one project that dragged on for a long time because actually their vendor had a serious health problem and abruptly retired. So they had to start over again and find someone else to finish the project. But aside from that incident, they have been pretty timely with their projects.
Does anybody have any follow-up questions they would like to ask of the proposer before we consider a vote on this next month? Er-
I don't have a question so much, but just a clarification. The amount that they're requesting is based on an estimate from their design professional, right? It's not we're not actually looking at quotes.
It is an estimate from their architect and structural engineer is what I wrote down.
Okay. It's a big number. I have no qualms whatsoever with the scope. They've been they're valuable asset to this community. And for reasons, I agree with everything. We've been funding them for a while, and everything that supports their cause is good. So I was just wanted to make sure to see how firm that number was, basically. But yeah.
I would love to offer a suggestion to help us capture this conversation to help with the decision making next month. In the prioritization column, perhaps we could add some ranking of prioritization for each of the projects. I might suggest either 1 or 2 to with maybe 1 being the highest score and 2 being less than the most important, or a 1 to 3 scale of most or less important projects. If you'd all be interested in using that as a tool.
Yeah, that's fine by me. Anybody with any feelings about how you personally would view this from a priority standpoint?
I just have one question. Obviously, I do really support this project. I do think it's a high priority. But do we know how much we've invested in this, like throughout the course of the CPC?
I can stop sharing for a second and I can answer that question pretty quickly.
Thanks, Roberta. I'm just thinking, like, if we've invested a lot into them, in one hand, it might be good to invest in others, but in the same hand, it's like it's something that we've been investing a lot in, and we should
Yeah.
continue to support them. And I'm kind of leaning to we've invested a lot in the understanding of the building and supporting them through their accessibility needs, and why not continue to support this wonderful group?
Yep. So while Roberta works on that, I would just offer to stir the pot and start a conversation here about priorities. I hear this proposal as not the most urgent request among the ones that we have here. This is about opening an additional area of the building for use. This is just my impression, so folks can weigh in. But there are other ones that are more, protecting the usability overall of the buildings, or, trying to address an urgent need. And some of these that, while I definitely support this project and support the organization, that would be the reason why I would put it as a tier 2, maybe, just in the interest of differentiating a bit. Anybody with disagreements?
Yeah, Ryan, I was just gonna quickly ask, because I remember that they mentioned that with that additional space, they were hoping to offer their services to more families and whatnot. So I'm just like thinking also about like public benefit standpoint. And like I totally hear what you're saying. But yeah, that's why I'm just like I just wanted to like put that thought in there. Does anyone remember exactly what they're planning on doing?
They
If
had a maker
yeah.
space and a number of other people that were at the meeting who do activities and after school programs, work with the kids. I would actually rank it as a 1. I don't think we've given them as much as we've given to Grace Church and S4H4 and stuff like that, and they've always been very responsible with the funds. They've gotten it through. They always report back. They're just they've taken all of our recommendations to like get a consultant and prioritize, and they've really proven themselves as good stewards of the building and the funds and the kids. So I kind of feel like it's a number one request in my book.
Yeah, I just feel like the work that they do, I just wanted to echo what you're saying, Heather. I just feel like it directly supports like childcare, food access, and yeah, it's just like super critical to the community. So that's why I'm also leaning towards one as well.
Thanks, Paul.
Also, the last thing, just from a lot of surveys through the OSRP, indoor space, like recreation space, like just being able to have different groups inside a building is something that we're very lacking in the city. So anything that kind of fills that void, I think, is definitely a priority for the city.
Can now that we're actually talking actual numbers, can you refresh my memory about what our request is versus what we have available? Like, how much do we have enough to cover the request, or we have to carve out almost $900,000? Is my reading of that accurate?
No, so what the summary right now shows that we have requests, again, excluding housing, of 3.129 million.
So I was actually looking just at historic preservation. So looking at each tier individually.
Gotcha. Let's see. Historic preservation, we have a budget of 633,000 and we have 1.53. So that's where your
Right.
900,000
Yes,
is
that's
coming
right.
from.
So we have to, so there's 900,000 in requests we cannot make.
Understanding that we've set aside more than half our budget as budgeted reserve to
Yeah.
preserve the flexibility.
So, okay, so 900,000 we have to carve out without allocating additional
That's right.
budget reserve. Okay.
That's right.
Because I think in the context of, of what we're talking about, the prioritizing what are these groups actually need to be kind of survive versus large, bigger picture improvements and expansions. And I agree with everything people are saying about the benefit of what they want to do with that space, but I'm still, in the absence of being able to compare it to what the other applicants are, what's riding on, on the line for them. And I have to admit, I have an excellent ability to forget in between these meetings.
No, understood.
I just would love to interject. The answer to the question is 640,000 is the sum of what we have funded them in the past.
Thank you.
And I also just wanted to interject also that there's a folder that has comments and letters of support written by community members and organizations. So you can also refer to those for more support or understanding about the impact of the project.
Yeah,
Right.
good
I also
note.
found a paragraph in their application where they say exactly what they would be able to do with this space, which if anyone's interested, I can just read. It's like 5 lines.
That'd be great if you want to summarize it, David.
Yeah, so it says stabilizing this floor would enable us to pursue a capital improvement fundraising campaign to transform the space into a community center style multi-purpose facility serving a broader range of populations, including aging neighbors, parents and caregivers, teens, and other community groups. It would, as part of this larger defined project, create opportunities for new programming, including intergenerational activities, cultural workshops and celebrations, art, music programs, professional skills training, and teen-focused personal and professional development. So all wonderful things, although not necessarily means they can't function without it.
I don't know if I think it's a debate about can they not function. I think you're right that this project, if stalled a year or 2 years or 3 years, the building's still going to be fine, probably. But I do think that the community services that they would be providing are an urgent issue that we need to address, right?
I agree.
Yeah, and so if I can, I want to vote a 0 just to negate Ryan's number 2.
My stirring the pot worked. Excellent.
I think,
Um,
though, I think Ryan's point is good because from a distance, we should look at it. The highest priority in general is money that's required for someone to exist still. And we don't really have, except for maybe buddies. I don't think anybody here who's in that category. If they don't get the money, then they're gone. If hypothetically, if they didn't get this money for Elizabeth Peabody House, they would continue doing what they're doing now. We would just lose an opportunity to provide an additional function that's critically needed in the community. So it's kind of like, is it it's where you apply the criticalness of it? Is it the building as it is now, or is it the new capacity? And to change a little bit, if you scroll down, Roberta, I'm a little confused still. We have these deficiencies to the very bottom where there are pot of money described. So, or actually up. Oh, no, that's it, right? That's good. So we have these negative balances. The budgeted reserve for FY, it's the 586. That's new money into our budgeted reserve. So the pre-existing one was 1.8 or 1.7 or something.
So I'm glad that you asked. The budgeted reserve is actually 586,000, and the total available includes the undesignated fund balance. And I should have pointed that out to you earlier because you may not want to spend the entire undesignated fund balance. Last year or the last few years, you've agreed to hold on to $775,000 or is that the amount? $750,000. That's the word I'm looking for in the undesignated fund balance. Next month, when we get the final numbers, you may want to treat that a little bit differently because if the current revenue stays the same, we anticipate that you'll be sitting on a larger pot of carried over funds that you weren't able to appropriate this year, that you are confident you will be receiving anyway. And would just have to sit on it until they're released to be spent in a future year. So you may be open to digging deeper into the undesignated fund balance this year if the budgeted FY26 column stays the same. But we are hopeful that the budgeted FY26 column will be bigger and by perhaps about the same amount that the undesignated fund balance that you might be willing to spend in the undesignated fund balance. So I don't know if I've explained it well, but this total available is probably a realistic place to land for about how much we think is going to be available this budget when we get the numbers next month.
So I thought in the CPA Alliance newsletter, they recently had an article basically saying that construction's down, so there's less coming into the CPA fund, into the match from the filing fees, and there's more towns that have CPA. So that basically it was saying the matches are going down, that it's not going to be as robust as it's been in years past. And so this extra that you're talking about is more that there was this sort of delay in collecting the increase in the local real estate match, right? In the 3%, like it didn't hit the first quarter or something like that.
Yeah, the difference is that the budget that we estimated last spring, which is what you saw in the spring, is the lower budget that's on this page. And this is our estimate of how much money we're actually going to be receiving this year. But City Council was given a smaller budget, making a more conservative assumption about how much money we would be collecting this year. And so we're waiting to see whether they finally adopt this budget instead of this budget. Or to add a dish, like to make up the difference between our original budget and this budget.
So that's an interesting. So when we're looking at basically how much to sharpen our pencil here tonight, whether we have to think about paring any asks down, one way or another, we're going to get that money, whether it's now or sometime before next summer. So
We won't be able to, so it's about 1.4 million that's in the balance that we don't know whether city council is going to appropriate it. If they don't appropriate that 1.4 million by because of the state rules for accounting, we would be required to sit on that money for over a year before we could touch it.
okay, but to your first point, though, that the confidence that that money is coming allows us to dig deeper into our undesignated fund because we
Yeah.
know it's going to get replenished. So it's sort of like, I think I used this term before, like a payday loan in a way, like we know we're going to get it. So if digging deeper, it's more comfortable to fund these projects that we think are critical.
That's
Yeah.
exactly what I was suggesting. Yeah.
Okay.
I had a comment I wanted to echo or kind of piggyback on a few of the themes others have brought up, but take it in a further direction. When we think of, and each of us has a different measure of what the highest ranking should be for, but in addition to urgent need, which, you know, when you think of housing or historic preservation, it's to stabilize something. It also could be high ranking simply because the activation of the upper story space further strengthens the multi-purpose coming together epicenter that the community, for the community that Elizabeth Peabody House will be. It's kind of kicking it up a notch, and so it may not feel as like it would stack up next to urgent, because it's not urgent. They could still operate without it. They just wouldn't do any of these things. But and I can't remember if it was Ryan or if it was Michael had said, but when you look at the long range plan, it ticks off so many boxes of what the city wants to achieve. That's a different type of priority high, even though it's not urgent. So I mean, you know, each of us has different ways we define what top priority is, but that struck me that maybe it's the economic development kind of hat on my head sometimes, that it already does amazing things there. And if they could activate the second story, it would get even more multi-purpose use. And that would be strengthening the coming together role that the facility has for the community.
Totally
So, Mary-
think that's right. Thanks, Mary Jo. Sorry,
Mary
who
Jo,
did I
does
interrupt?
that-
Michael?
I was sorry. I was gonna say, Mary Jo, does that mean you're also voting 0? Is that what I heard?
If that would register on the thing, I don't know.
No, all good. And everything you said, Mary Jo, is right, and that's great, and that's why we're here and not being replaced by bots, so that we can have this discussion and bring our different perspectives. So that's great. Okay, so I think we should move on here as we're getting short on time already, and we're on our first project here. I'm okay. Look, we can list this as a priority 1. It sounds like that's the overall sentiment here, which is all fair and great. Okay, let's go on then to the second one, which was Vida Real. This is the 404 Broadway Church, $150,000 request. The request was originally for roof repairs. Then it was amended just prior to their presentation last time to pivot towards, it was not, what was it? Non-religious window, like stained glass.
Tiffany.
Yes, related to sealing up the envelope of the building, I guess. So non-imagery windows and doors. And the budget overall, it was, you know, the scope that they submitted from an architect contemplated a total need for building exterior repairs of $350,000, and it had a bunch of line items for different work, roof, the windows, the religious windows, all that. And the request specifically for these non-imagery windows and doors was 150,000 out of the $163,000 cost for those scope items. I guess maybe to start the conversation, I know that we have our historic preservation consultant that's going to give us some information in the new year. This feels like one where we could conceivably want some input from them as well. Something for us to talk about next month when we start going to votes. But in any case, what other questions, comments, feelings do folks have about the Vita Rail proposal?
If I inject again, I guess this is historically, those are significant. I don't know that they're not receiving that money would, I don't know how dire it is that those windows get restored. If they're imminent, fall apart, there's obviously historic value to that work happening. And I guess to go backwards a little bit, at the core mission of the historic preservation allotment is historic preservation. It's in a weird way, it's stripped of the function within, in a sense. It's purely how much benefit does this money have to historic preservation, whether it's a church or a community center or a private. I mean, that's two thoughts I'm mingling there, but I don't think that this is as much of a priority to the imminent survival of the building.
Eric, would it be fair to say, looking back at, if you recall what they came with last year, were a request for dollars to, still in the historic bucket, but interior improvements meant to drive the functionality of their programming that they were doing inside. This year, it's pivoted to being more about the cultural, historical, patrimony, whatever, of this structure to Somerville, and less about the programmatic aspect. Is that fair, do you think?
If I could
Go ahead, Roberta.
correct the record. So the project that they funded in the past was restoring the masonry on the tower. And they gave a presentation talking about what goes on inside the building in response to the committee asking what the use of the building was.
At their presentation last month.
This year they gave a little update on that, and last year they talked about that. They introduced that to their presentation at the committee's request.
And they
Okay.
hired a consultant at the committee's request.
Yes, they
Who
did.
came up with these windows as a #1 priority for the preservation of the building.
And that was what last year's money went towards, right? It was the consultants
Yes.
which was, I think, money well spent.
So I had in my notes that there was money for an ADA accessibility / code assessment of the interior, a safety related study.
That was a match. That was a match by their organization.
Okay, so that was
to
not
the study
funded by
that we did.
CPC.
Yeah.
I see. Okay, thanks for correcting me. So Eric, am I hearing you open the bidding at this as a priority 2 based upon the
I think
the
yeah,
urgency
in
or
my
otherwise?
way of looking at it, the highest priority is something that assures the survival of the build, and this is historic preservation. So ensures the survival of a historic resource. Number 2 is augmenting or increasing it. And I think in the Elizabeth Peabody House, we're sort of giving it high priority, not because of its value historically, but because of its function in the community. We're sort of morphing that cause into it's something else that's obviously community benefits as well. So I have no issue with that, but I think that those windows are Tiffany windows. It's a great thing to have. I just don't think that they're not getting this money will cause them harm immediately. So I would probably call that a 2.
Okay, thanks for putting
My
that
feeling.
out there.
Yeah,
Does any-
I just want to quickly add, sorry, Ryan, that I agree with everything that Eric just said. However, while it won't hurt them immediately, it can definitely cause some serious damage down the line, and it can get very expensive if water leaks in and
Yeah.
damages the floor, wood, and so on. You can imagine. With that said, I just don't see it having the level of impact that Elizabeth Peabody does, which is why I also land on a 2 for this project.
Thanks, Carlos. Any passionate advocates for this one to be a 1 priority? Okay. Here,
I would
Heather?
Sorry, it took me a while to unmute.
Oh, David first.
Do we have from their perspective how high a priority it is? Like why their consultant that we recommended that they hire said this is the highest priority? I mean, is there perhaps more, like Carlos brings up, more imminent peril than maybe we know?
Checking our minutes.
That's something that might be buried deep in their report too, that I don't know.
Unfortunately, I was just looking at the submission. It seems like they really just kind of amended it with a letter saying, on second thoughts, we want to replace the windows.
I
So
can, yeah, they were trying to make a request that reflected what the architect recommended and what they thought the city could fund, and they misunderstood the eligibility of the windows, which is why they didn't request the windows in the first place. When I
They are,
realized that they made that misunderstanding, I suggested that they might want to follow the architect's recommendation and request the windows first.
yeah. So I see in the minutes, it says that Carlos asked why the windows needed to be restored, and Ms. Mendez explained that they allow water to seep in currently, damaging the building.
Oh.
And Heather observed that the condition assessment also recommended the installation of storm windows to protect them. And Eric noted that the windows made by Tiffany are significant. That was the extent of the conversation there, but it seems like there is some risk of water intrusion. So
To Carlos's point, I would backtrack a little bit. If time is of the essence with those windows and not protecting them is going to cause harm in the more near term, I would absolutely make that a higher priority because we don't want to lose those.
I in my mind, this is kind of a number 1, partly because it's also on the National Register. I mean, this is it's a Richardson building. It's got Tiffany windows. It's an amazing structure, and I feel like this is a group that sort of is learning how to take care of this building better, and the use of these funds. I just partly just because it's on the National Register, as it's a really significant building. So in my mind, and 150 versus some of these other asks seems like money well spent.
It sounds like again it can get a lot more expensive next time around if we don't get to it now.
very possible. Okay, so maybe if no objections from anybody, let's go ahead and throw 1 in there. We can track this obviously as we go through the rest. If we need to reallocate, we can. I remember last year we did this exercise. I think they were all 1s, so we can be choosy later as well. Okay, let's try to knock out 1 more here before we break for admin. Let's at least start the conversation about buddies, which is an interesting one. I think we all agree. The request here for just under $75,000 is for 2 pieces of scope, $45,000 for an emergency water damage repair, and then a second scope of work for just less than $30,000 for a historic conditions request by maybe that's historic conditions study. I think I wrote it down wrong, but a study by a professional, structural and historic architectural conditions assessment, not a kitchen or mechanical assessment, which would be, I'm guessing, something else for them to get back up and running. This received a number of letters of support, including from city councilors and others. And I think we all heard um, the message of personal urgency for this request as well, in addition to it being for a community historic asset. So I'll stop there. What are folks' thoughts on buddies?
Yeah, for this one, I would just quickly add that, I appreciate its cultural value, but just compared to other projects that are serving, the people of Somerville, I'm just gonna have to place this one as a 3. And I know that obviously this one is very important and they need that money to survive. But yeah, it's like a private business, and I'm just not sure how I felt about that. I would love to hear everyone else's thoughts on that though.
Thanks, Carlos, for putting that out there. David, did you come off mute? Sorry.
I already was off mute.
Oh, sorry.
But actually, I would rank this higher, I think, because, even though it is a private business and perhaps doesn't benefit the number of people of some of the other projects that we generally support, it is it's a really famous landmark, in Somerville. I have no idea what sort of protection it has. And I feel like, as much as I feel like it oughtn't be our problem or this owner's problem to fix these, I mean, obviously she's, between a rock and a hard place, trying to get the resources together in order to do what I do think is the right thing, which is, get it, restored and maintain it. So I'd probably rank this, a bit higher.
Okay.
I-
I'll share my my personal thoughts on this, and I'd actually love to hear from Mary Jo in a second as the economic development hat wearer. But I think for me personally, I was really happy to see this request, and I would love to see way more of these requests from businesses, small businesses especially. I think this is a really interesting potential use for our dollars, and one that frankly maybe is just one that small businesses don't know that they can potentially tap into to maintain or upgrade their space if it's historic. So I was encouraged by that. I think it's we talk a lot about the diversity of applicants we want, and this to me brings that in a way that I haven't necessarily seen in the last few years. I'll also say that while I totally understand the maybe trepidation is not the right word, but the extra thought about funding private businesses and choosing winners, throwing public dollars after small businesses. On the converse side, this is a community asset. A lot of the small businesses we have are community assets. Speaking very personally, I can go and would go and will go to Buddies. I really won't ever go to the Kennedy schoolyard. And so there are multiple ways that we talk about being generally accessible to the entire population of Somerville. So maybe I'll pause there. Mary Jo, I know I put you on the spot, but I would love to
That's
I would
okay.
love to hear your thoughts.
That's okay. I had shared some thoughts with Roberta, just over the phone because I had to miss last month's meeting, but I'll share them with you all as well. I'm very fond of Worcester lunch cars, and not just the ones in Somerville, but in the city where I currently work, we have a historic Worcester lunch car that went dormant for almost 2 years as one party retired, and there it sat, and there was all sorts of debate about what to do. What I learned, it is now operational again, but what I learned is, and maybe it's a little different in how it's enforced in Somerville, but health code is not something that gets grandfathered. So the only question I had for us all to ponder, because the Worcester lunch car in the city where I work, for it to become operational again, there were certain things that simply had to be done to it. And this has to do with the kitchen, the hood system, different things that were never there. And because it was in continuous operation, the old timey nature of things was tolerated, but once it went dormant, it kind of hits the reset button. Now, I don't know, once again, if that's how buddies would be handled in Somerville, but I guess my question for us to ponder, and maybe we could even ask the applicant, is it's amazing to stabilize it, and it sounds like that's part of what is needed right now, but stabilizing it, if the owners don't have a plan for how to get it code compliant and operational again, it almost is like a little museum, like a little museum of a diner. Now, maybe I'm off the mark, and maybe the health department, the building department, they all know exactly the condition of the kitchen or whatever. But that was my one question I had for myself or us as a group is, could the awarding of these funds be paired with them having demonstrated that they're aware of what upgrades are needed so that it can cook again? Because it may not be that you can just fire it all up like it used to be after a period of dormancy. And that was my thoughts. I love diners. I would love to see it active again. But I wondered, would these funds, if they were all that was put on the table and they weren't able to cobble together other funds to do other things, would it be sort of preserved but not usable?
100% agree, Mary Jo. I think that's a great comment. Sorry, was that Roberta?
Yeah, I may be able to fill in a little bit on that. They have a kitchen in the back where they do most of the food preparation, and because of the way that this building was damaged, most of that kitchen is going to have to be gutted and everything replaced. So in addition to the CPA money, which is only touching the infrastructure and the historic front of the building, they're also pursuing many other potential grant sources to bring their kitchen back into operation again. And
Helpful.
the preservation of the building really does, well, I mean, like you said, this is just doing the basic infrastructure and historic preservation plan. And so to make it operational is something beyond what CPA is doing.
I also want to add to that I'd be wary of us kind of putting them in this bind where the other fundraisers are saying, well, we're not going to give you the money if you don't have the funding to do this really elemental, fix the sewer pipe thing. Because I could see them saying the same thing. It's like, why would we want to put money in to put it in your kitchen if you don't have you don't have sewer pipes? But the other thing I wanted to point out, I thought Mary, that was a really good point, but about how they may have been grandfathered, under old ordinances. But this isn't the first time they've shut down, unfortunately. There was another time, not only maybe 5 or 10 years ago, it's hard to remember with COVID, where they were also closed down for a couple of years. So if that sort of condition would have been the place, it would have had to probably bring their kitchen up to spec or their, at that point, although like Roberta says,
maybe they
her
did
point,
through the improvement of the kitchen in the back, but then that got destroyed more recently or something.
Yeah. Although it sounds like Roberta's point trumps that anyway. If everything got flooded, it wouldn't matter.
I think it starts to kind of, in the notes, we should be making notes of some of these conditions where should we be able to award them the grant that we would, I mean, I think it's good if they can leverage the CPA funds to get other grants, but there's a number of things that we would want to kind of have come together. And part of that would be making sure that it can operate as a diner, right?
I think that's a great point, but I think that makes it maybe the idea that that we don't make it contingent on them getting the other grants, but understanding if they can't get those other grants, we'd get our money back because then presumably they wouldn't spend the money on the sewer pipes.
Yeah, I agree with a lot of those points. Just kind of knowing the permitting process and how once you go in for your permit, it starts to trigger other permits and understanding that cascading effect. I am a little bit concerned that there will be some lagging in this project, and so I am just concerned about like what happens if we give them the funds, they repair the pipes, and they realize they can't get all the health code approvals, and then they still have to sell the property. Those are kind of my questions on the project.
So this gets into the preservation consultant that we hired, because we always get into a little bit of a quandary with the private individuals around, like, is there a clawback? What's appropriate? What's not appropriate? So if she was to sell it, um, what is our, is that our business or not our business? Do we get our money back out of that sell? And if so, out of how much time? This is the private individuals with preservation funds has been tricky, and I don't know if you've had any, if the preservation consultants can help us with this, conditions on this.
Yeah, we will definitely ask them. I would just want to keep in mind that the CPA funds are preserving the building and not the business. So if repairing the sewer makes it possible for someone else to come and open a business at this site, that's still achieving the objective.
Yeah, I was just going to make that point that Cameron, I don't have any, I have much fewer issues with giving out money if it helps keep the structure around, whether it's this owner or future owner. Sure, if they sold it for an extra $15,000 because we gave them money, that's great, but we kept the building alive. So I think I view this as money that's sort of critical to the sustained operation of that building, and therefore I view it as a pretty high priority. It's not much money there. And if it crashes and burns, then I mean, we'll have discussions with our preservation consultant about that eventuality, but I wouldn't lose sleep at night if it crashed and burned and we'd given them that money. That benefits the city ultimately.
There might be an unusual provision we would add to the condition, or no, what is it? Roberta, remind me, what do we call it when well, I guess it's conditions, but Worcester lunch cars are movable much more so than any other kind of building. And so that's how Kelly's Diner got in Ball Square, that came from somewhere else. So if we could maybe add a unique provision that if for some reason she did need to sell, that it wouldn't be selling it to move it off site, because we would have invested in stabilizing it to remain there. Now, we don't normally put that as a provision because most of the buildings we're preserving have foundations and all this other stuff, but these kind of buildings are movable. And so I just wanted to maybe throw that out as something to ponder.
Unless it stays in Somerville.
Is
Oh,
Buddy's
you're muted.
Yes, I mean, if it had to go to another location in Somerville that's still in Somerville, I would hate to see it leave after maybe the owners have to throw in the towel, and these things have value. People buy them and put them somewhere else, and we would want it to stay in the community if it had to get sold.
Eric, did you have a comment or question?
I'm just trying to remember, I should know this being the historic commission guy. Are they in a local historic district? I think
Yes.
they are, so they can't move the building without our permission.
Noted.
And actually having them be in historic district helps me more with that because this is a property that's got some long-term protection baked into it.
Yeah.
Whoever buys it has to do the right thing there.
Okay. Any other last thoughts? Oh, sorry, go on.
I was going to make a pitch for number one.
Go on, Heather. Let's
Yeah.
hear it.
I would
Well,
agree.
just, for the reasons that we've been discussing, I feel that it's not a lot of money. It would make a huge impact on preserving this resource and getting it back on its feet. So,
Thanks, Heather.
yeah.
Anybody want to add on to that? I'll say this is a one for me, and with conditions though. I think the points that were made were good ones. That this only is effective. This only achieves the end goals that I think I'm hearing we care about if it's paired with other money. But this seems like this award would be a means to an end for that. Any other feelings on this before I wrap us here and move us on to admin stuff? All right, cool. Thanks everybody for chatting through those. I'm sorry we only got through 3, but those were good discussions. I think it's a good foundation for us to build on in our next meeting and go through the remaining 5 or 6, whatever it is that we have. So in the interest of time, Roberta, anything you want to talk through on admin stuff before we break?
We have lots to talk about, actually. So I'll try to move through this quickly. The first very important thing we need to do is confirm a meeting date for next month. It being the holiday month, our tentative meeting date is December 17, but I wanted to see whether committee members have a preference for December 17 or December 10. Maybe we could have just a quick show of hands if you are available on December 17. Or maybe it would be quicker to give me your hand if you are not available on September 17. We lose Carlos and John. Who is not available on December 10? We lose John and Michael. Okay, so I do not see a clear winner in this. So I would you tell me what you'd like to do.
December 17th keeps us closer to the standard drumbeat of our meetings. I think it's basically would be 4 weeks from tonight, right? Unless folks have objections, I'm sorry to lose the 2 folks that we would be. I also recognize it's ever closer to Christmas, Hanukkah, and all that other fun stuff. So if people want to advocate for the 10th, I'll entertain that. Otherwise, I would vote for the 17th.
And all right, I'll go with the 17th then. And then the next update is our general public member. I want to acknowledge very sadly that this tonight is our last meeting with Heather. Thank you so much for 6 years of service, Heather, and 2 years of being our committee chair. So valuable. And further celebrating Heather's input, it was Heather's suggestion that why don't we just ask for the ordinance change so that we can slightly lengthen the time that people can serve who start with partial terms. And that is going to City Council actually this month. So with any luck, we will actually get that through. And some of the folks who are serving on this committee with who started partially served terms will be able to complete 2 full terms rather than losing them so quickly. So wanted to make that celebration. And we have just the city council just approved Rona Fishman as the next replacement for the general public member. So I don't know, she's been very active in a lot of ways in the city for decades. And so I don't know if some of you know Rona, but you'll get to know her starting in January. I need to mention that one of the items of business coming up next month on top of all of the really important discussions that we're having is that we need to elect officers for next year. So the officers that we have this year, Ryan and Eric, are eligible to continue again if they want to. And I'd love to invite them to share their willingness to serve again. Perhaps it would be best if you would, I don't know if you've had a chance to think about it, if you'd like to let us know now, or if we need to spend a month recruiting somebody to be willing to run for chair and vice chair next year when we have our elections.
I can start. I would be more than happy to continue serving if folks are interested in having me. I also am more than happy to cede the role to anybody else if interested. So I'll leave my name in the hat or whatever we want to say, but certainly speak up if anybody is interested in taking on this role next year, and we can chat.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And I'll just mention that according to our ordinance, the position of chair and vice chair are both held for 1 year at a time, and the chair can serve up to two. Any one person can serve up to 2 terms as chair. So that's the commitment that you would be signing up for. Next on my list, I wanted to mention today we celebrated move-in celebration for the Clarendon redevelopment project. It's a really exciting milestone. The first phase completed, public housing and affordable housing residents able to move into the first building that has been constructed. So thank you to the CPC members who approved the funding to enable that project to get over the finish line. CPA put in $4 million of bonding. That's one of those bonded projects that we see there. And the final thing I wanted to mention is that it's that time of year when we would love to have an end of year social, especially to celebrate our outgoing member and invite our incoming member to join. So I will put out a poll tomorrow to see if we can find a date over the next 2 months, end of year or beginning of year, to have another social gathering for the CPC.
Excellent. All right. Thanks, Roberta. Thanks for running through that. Before we ask for a motion to adjourn, I just want to say, Heather, what a pleasure. It's been great. So much fun learning from you and getting to spend time with you and getting to know you. You've been an amazing asset to this group and to the city. So thank you. Job well done.
Yes,
Thanks to
great.
all of you.
Yeah,
I've really enjoyed getting to know the committee and working together. So
I sincerely apologize. I added this to my list today and I just realized that I'm making this up. I saw elections in my thing and I said, "Oh, it's the end of the year." Heather, you've got 1 more month. I'm
Not so
kicking you
bad.
out early. So my apologies for
Heather thought she
being
was getting off.
See
Yeah,
you in
so we'll get to
December.
thank you twice.
You have to return that gold watch.
Yeah, I was gonna say, well, don't blow your good record next month. Heather, you
But I
almost
think,
made it.
Roberta, next month is my last month too.
Y- Yes, that is right. Thank you, David, for reminding me that. So yes, we're losing both Heather and David this year, next month. And I hope, David, that you have someone lined up for the
Well,
Conservation
that's why I
Commission.
actually I was interested in your earlier comment about the discussion, because I don't know when or if that'll happen, because that would affect me.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, I only have one more meeting to wrangle someone else into the position if it doesn't affect me.
Well, that's a good reason to look into it. The city council is meeting on December 2nd, the Legislative Matters Committee, and then I'm sure it goes back to the regular city council. So they may have voted on the new ordinance before your next meeting. And I will need to find out who it affects. You know, if the, I mean, it seems to me it wouldn't make sense if it doesn't go into effect right away to enable the committee members to serve for up to 2 full terms.
Okay. Offline, maybe you can tell me when my a full term would actually expire, because it's only probably a number of months in any event.
No, what would happen is that your partial term wouldn't be counted.
Oh, at
So
all.
you'd have 3 more years ahead of you if you choose to accept the mission. But that may, you know, if that would be up to you and the Conservation Commission if you wanted to
Okay.
start another term and then hand it off to someone else.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Thanks for covering that, Roberta.
Yep.
All right. With that, I think I can ask for a motion to adjourn, please.
I'll move that we adjourn.
Can I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Roberta. Please call the roll.
All right. Oh, I gotta pull my cheat sheet back up again.
Mhm.
Ryan,
Yes.
Eric,
Yes.
Carlos,
Yes.
Mary Jo,
Yes.
John,
Yes.
Joe, Heather,
Yes.
Michael,
Aye.
and David.
Yes.
Great. Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody. Great seeing you.
You all.
Thank you.
See everyone. Bye.
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 Thank you. Bye-bye.